So lately I've been developing some agents using Google's ADK framework and then deploying them to Agent Engine and exposing it from Agent Engine through to my end users using Gemini Enterprise. While doing that, I've run into a few bugs that has got quite a significant impact on how you go about designing these agents. These bugs are actually present in Gemini Enterprise. They are not present or a cause of ADK or Agent Engine. So in this session, I just want to walk you through some of these bugs that I've encountered so that you don't pull your hair out thinking that you're doing something wrong in your agent. These are going to be worked on by the Gemini Enterprise team, and hopefully they'll be fixed in the future. But until then, it's good to know about them and know what you can do when you run into them. So let's dig into the code and then show you what the experience is like all the way through from the code with ADK Web locally, Agent Engine in GCP, and then Gemini Enterprise as the final UI that your end user will see. So here we are looking at the session ID agent that I've created. So throughout this video and this recording, I will be digging into this code and showing you how that ends up being displayed in Gemini Enterprise. The idea is that we've kept this extremely simple. These agents are just there to show the behavior of Gemini Enterprise. So for the session ID, you can see that I've just got a simple root agent. I'm using a callback on the after agent callback to just display what the session ID is that you will see whenever you have a conversation turn with your agent. And when you are doing this, the idea is that every chat session is a session on its own. So there will be a single session ID running throughout an entire conversation or a chat with your agent. So let's next jump into ADK Web to see what this looks like when it's running locally. And then after that, we'll go over to Agent Engine and then into Gemini Enterprise. So here we are in Agent Development Kit UI locally. I'm going to grab the session agent. We're going to keep this short, so I'm just going to say hi. That should kick off and run. And now you can see, there we go. We've got the message coming in from the user. We've got the response from the agent, and there's the session ID, and it matches the session ID that we're seeing up here. And if I say, what can you do? We should see the same session ID being printed over here. Right, so that's what we expect. Now we're going to go into Agent Engine. So going into Agent Engine here, you can see I'm on my session ID agent. I'm going to go into the playground. We're going to fire up the session. There's the session that we're in. I'm going to do the same thing, fire that off. And we expect the session ID that comes back to match what the session ID is here. Go, what can you do? And the session ID stays the same. As you can see, ending in 78528, 78528. Right, so that's what we expect to have happen. Now let's go into Gemini Enterprise. So I'm on my agents. I've deployed them here. We're going to go with the session ID agent. And we go off and say, hi. There we go. There's our session ID. And if I say, what can you do? We would expect the session ID to be the same. But here you can see the session ID has changed. Now what's happening is Gemini Enterprise seems to be invoking every single conversation turn with an external agent or a custom developed agent. It's invoking that as if it is a brand new chat session. So this has got quite big implications. Anything you doing in your agent code to store files against a particular session ID, maybe on something like cloud storage, or dealing with that session ID as some form of indicator of all of the conversation that you've got going within a chat session, that's not going to be honored. So that brings you to a situation where you now need to code around this and find different ways of dealing with it. So this is one of the first big bugs that I've seen in Gemini Enterprise, and how it is busy interacting with sessions when you're busy dealing with custom developed agents. So here we're looking at the code for the file render agent, and all we're doing is we are rendering two PDFs to the user in the Gemini Enterprise UI. That's the goal. So I've got two separate PDF files here with different content, and then all I'm doing is reading those files and pushing it out with a after agent callback to the Gemini Enterprise UI ultimately. What this is doing with ADK, obviously pushing it to the user as inline data blobs, and then we'll see what this looks like in ADK Web as well as Gemini Enterprise. So let's have a look. So here we are in ADK Web again, and I've got my file render agent selected, and when I type a message, you should see there will be an attempt to render 2 files out. Now this is a bug in the ADK Web UI. I didn't expect it to actually render, but just to show that there's an attempt to render 2 things out from the agent side. So let's now have a look at what that looks like in Agent Engine. I suspect that a similar thing will happen in Agent Engine. So if I go in here and say I, then the agent gives it a go, and you'll see it's trying to stream that information through. So it's not having a great time of it, but this playground isn't designed to mimic everything that you'll see in Gemini Enterprise. So now let's move over to Gemini Enterprise, and we'll go to the file render agent over here. And if I say hi, then I expect to see those 2 inline data objects rendered out to me over here. So you can see it's still thinking, and that's part of the rendering of those things to the UI for the user. So that keeps going until they have been streamed over. And there you see the 2 files that have been rendered. Now when I hover over it, take a look. The first bug you'll notice is we did specify a file name. So we can go back to the code in a second to validate that. The file name isn't honored, or the display name isn't honored when this is rendered out to the UI. But luckily, if we hover over it, you'll see that at least the ID that you see on it is different. So it gets a unique file name generated to it. So that's the first problem, is that the file name isn't honored. The second problem is that when I click on this and I say proceed to preview, we'll get a preview of the first PDF. This is the multi-page report. Now, if I go over to the second document and say proceed to preview, it actually renders the exact same document. Now, this is a bug in the UI, and even if you download this, the document that you download will always be just one of the documents that you've uploaded or that you've pushed to the user. So that is one of the other major bugs, is that it's not actually giving you the PDF or the document that you've pushed through to the user. And that is a pretty big issue, specifically because you are trying to get obviously different files rendered for the user and they can't access it. So that is the file rendering bug. So 2 things on it: the file name that is not being honored, or the display name not being honored, and then the second one being you do not get the actual document available to you. It just chooses one of the documents. So if there were 3 of them here or 4 of them here, they would all show exactly the same document, even though you've streamed a different document for each one of those blobs for the inline data types for the user. Just to show you, we're back in the code here. Here are the display names that we specified for these inline data parts. And you can see we've got basic text.pdf, and we've got this for the first one as the display name, and sample report.pdf for the second one. So that's why I say the display name is not being honored by Gemini Enterprise. Right, the next one I want us to look at, and this will be our final one for this session, is when a user uploads a document to you, you want to be able to get access to that document and do something with it. So, for example, if someone uploads a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document or any other file, you might want to be able to grab that original uploaded file and convert it into PDF if you want to send it to the large language model, or chunk it up yourself, or do something with it. You want access to that. So this agent is going to, all it's going to do is it's going to display to us what the file name, the display name of what the user has actually uploaded is, and then the second thing, what the MIME type of that document is. So you would expect to be able to get to the actual original document as it's been uploaded by the user. Right, so let's have a look at what this looks like in ADK Web. And again, keep in mind, it's just, this is a before agent callback, not an after agent callback now, just because I want to output what we've seen is being uploaded from the user side. So let's have a look at what this looks like in ADK Web. All right, so here we are, ADK Web. I've got my user docs agent selected. Let's have a look what this is going to produce for us. Cool, so I'm going to click on upload a file, and I'm just going to go to my downloads, and I've got a sample report that I'm going to upload. And there it is, just a docx file. And I'm just going to say, review this. It doesn't matter what I say there, but there you can see we are getting through the display name and the correct MIME type. So this is important to know. This means if it's running an ADK Web or just a normal ADK agent, you've got the ability to hook into this and download that inline data file, which is super important for whatever you want to do with that. You need to have access to the raw file. Now, I'm not going to look at Agent Engine in this session because Agent Engine itself doesn't have in the playground the ability to upload files. So we're going to go straight into Gemini Enterprise, and I'm going to go into my user docs agent here, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to upload that exact same report that I've got, open it there. It's busy rendering. I don't even really need to type anything in here, but let's see what this does. And here we go. So now you'll see what happens is it's actually taking the document. So if you put logging on this and you go through the actual logs that you'll see in the back end and you trace this out, what it's doing is for anything that's not one of the supported file types, so text, image, and PDF, it actually goes and chunks it into text, plain text chunks. And if there were images embedded in it, it goes off and specifically in PowerPoint presentations, will take the images out and make those chunks. So it sends you a content type object with MIME type of text plain and any images that it's found inside of the document. And what you end up with in the Gemini Enterprise side of the world is your document already pre-processed and chunked in a way that Gemini Enterprise decided to do it, which is pretty problematic because there's no way for you to ever get to the original document that was just uploaded by your user. So that puts a real big roadblock into a lot of things that you might want to do. So take any particular file types and process them in a way that your agent has been designed to work with it. So Gemini Enterprise does this. This is not ADK or Agent Engine. It's happening from the Gemini Enterprise side. So that's something to be aware of. So I hope that gave you a bit of insight into the bugs and how I've gone about recreating them. Have a look at the GitHub repo to recreate them on your side, and keep in mind that these things will force you to design your agents in a way that's probably going to be different to what you would have done if it was just a standard ADK based agent deployed onto Cloud Run or Agent Engine with a different UI. So it's very much Gemini Enterprise as a layer that processes things before it gets to your agent that's causing these. And you might find ways to work around that. The big challenge with that is in future when this gets fixed, and hopefully it does, we end up having to rechange our agent logic again. The other challenge that you might face is that some of the things that you want to do, you will not be able to expose it via Gemini Enterprise because of this behavior. For example, the user documents that they upload and where it gets pre-processed and chunked, that is a major roadblock for a lot of things that you might want to do when allowing users to upload custom files. So I hope you enjoyed this. Leave me a comment or get in touch with me wherever you see this video, and I'm always happy to have a conversation about how I've approached some of these things and how this has impacted the work that I do.